And I'm driving, right, guys? Yeah.
Yeah, you're live.
All right. Hey, guys, we are live. I'm JVL here with my Bulwark colleagues, Sonny Bunch and Joe Perticone, and we are bringing you the very sad news that, according to news reports, Hulk Hogan, knee Terry Bollea, knee the Fabulous Thunderlips, has passed on at 71 years of age. A tremendous loss to the world of professional wrestling, the loss of a true American icon, the loss of a guy who's just a fascinating character who popped up again and again in American life. And to Sonny and I, the loss of a beloved childhood figure in wrestling. And to Joe, something totally different, because Joe is of a different generation. And we will get to all of this. But I wanna set the table very quickly by, I don't know what's going on back there.
Somebody's getting table slammed
I
back
want
there.
Yeah, the Dudley boys are over in Joe's neighborhood. I would like us to start with just a brief 30 seconds of one of Hulk's great promos. And this is, I want us, and the reason is because I want us to remember him as he once was. Glorious. I see you now, Blue. You're glorious. And this is Hulk when he was being eased out of the company by creating an alliance with the Ultimate Warrior, who they were setting up to become the next Hulk Hogan. But they began that by having them team up. And here is Hulk doing just one of his all-time great promos.
You know something, Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, and Colonel Mustafa, ever since WrestleMania, when I won the first battle with all my little Hulksters, I knew it was just the beginning of the war. And then when you burnt my flesh, the smell was just like napalm in my mind. I heard you laugh. I heard you get off on it, brother. And ever since then, I've had nightmares that I was going to have to fight the troops of yours all by myself. And then that senile Jack Tunney put this thing together with the Warrior as a blood brother and the Warriors and the Hulkamaniacs united as one. Now I realized I had a chance to win the war. And then all of a sudden, the special referee, Sid Justice, just put the icing on the cake.
That's enough.
Even Steven, 50-50.
I mean, there's so much happening right there. The Ultimate Warrior, possibly on cocaine. I mean, who could say? Really, who could say? You know, just a couple of guys who clearly did a lot of low weight, high reps, and ate a lot of skinless chicken because they, they're oiled up and swole, and they did it the natural way. So that was the Hulkster back in the day. You could see the charisma coming off of him from like 10 miles away. And I guess I want to start with you, Sonny. What are your thoughts on what this guy was?
Yeah,
it's a weird figure in American life.
Well, no, this is. I was thinking about the news broke an hour ago, and I started thinking about Hulk Hogan and how to classify him. And there are few figures who are weirdly, and this sounds bizarre to say, but more consequential to American history over the last 50 years or so than Donald Trump, right? Like I slipped into Donald Trump there because you can draw a pretty straight line from the whole WWE thing to Donald Trump, and we can talk about kayfabe and the impact of wrestling on the culture writ large. But Hulk Hogan was just this kind of fascinating figure who, as you said, popped up over and over again. The spread of wrestling and the idea of kind of sports entertainment is the first leg of this. There is the rise of reality television. He was one of the big like early reality TV stars in the 2000s, late 90s. There was his war against Gawker, which of course ties into Peter Thiel,
bankrolled by Peter Thiel. One of the strangest alliances ever. I wish we had seen a promo at the time with Hulk and Peter Thiel, because that's what that was. It was
if they had cut a promo, it would have been amazing. No, it's he again, and then most recently, and I guess the last big thing is at the convention, at the Republican National Convention last year. And Joe, you were there. You can maybe fill us in on this, but at the time, after the video of Hulk Hogan played at the convention. The Biden campaign, still the Biden campaign at the time, was putting out a bunch of clips of it. Like, look at this idiot. Look at this goober, right? And that, of course, is how Hulk Hogan was perceived by supporters of Biden, by the Democratic, Party, by folks in the media. But I thought this was a huge mistake, because what the campaign, what the Trump campaign, what the RNC was doing very specifically was saying, hey, do you remember the past? Do you remember Hulkamania? Do you remember when things were good in this country? You, the Gen X, the white male Gen X voter out there, do you remember when you were 13 and your life wasn't fucking miserable? Because that's what Hulk Hogan represents. And I again, you can talk about how déclassé it is and how we are idiocracy and this is, ridiculous. But politics are vibes. And Hulk Hogan had the most unique kind of defining set of vibes in America over the last four or 5 decades. That's the only way I can think to describe him.
He's a figure a little bit like Elvis in that way. Like he's very, very large, very influential in the culture. He shows up over and over. Joe, tell us your story of Hulk Hogan.
So Hulk's like always been a constant in like pop culture, like since I was a kid, because like I wasn't into wrestling, but he, like Sonny said, Hogan Knows Best was like one of the most popular reality TV shows, which then turned into his sex tape, which then turned into War with Media. And so that's how I knew him. And like in high school, in football, we would all cut our shirts like Hulk Hogan so we could look jacked. And then one of my best friends got ejected from a game for doing the,
thing. He did the Hulk ear.
And then the ref threw him out and he was like, I couldn't hear. Someone was saying something and everyone was like, shut the hell up. You were clearly trying to do the Hulk Hogan thing. And then, now like at the RNC last year, I was up in the nosebleeds because that's where they stuck the bulwark, to find people at the GOP. But that's where like all the people who attend the RNC, who are just there for fun because they love this stuff, we were with them. And so it was like the people with the tape on their ears at the time to mimic getting shot. And they loved Hulk. And if you compare it to the other night when they had Kid Rock play, all these like old folks who are just MAGA people, they didn't really understand Kid Rock or know who he was outside of like a few Fox appearances. They all knew who Hulk Hogan was, and they all kind of echoed the same thing that Sonny said, where it's like, he's from the good old days when America was great, meaning the 80s, because there's a certain type of American who thinks the 80s is the greatest period in history. And so, yes, it's, a loss of an icon in that regard.
So one of the things I want to talk about with Hogan, and this is a classic thing, is that he looks like all professional wrestlers. He looks like this gigantic muscle-bound cartoon character, and you think superhero. But in the inside, all wrestlers are carnies. They are much, much closer in internal temperament to like Broadway actors, like struggling Broadway actors, or to carnies, vaudeville. To vaudeville. They've got their whole own code. And to understand Hogan, like I think you got to go to 2 incidents. The first is wrestling tried to unionize. This is way, way back. So Vince McMahon took wrestling from being a series of regional promotions, which were all had different ownership and all had territories, and he merged them into a single national monopoly. Basically, it wasn't a true monopoly; it was a duopoly, but for our intents and purposes, it was a monopoly. And at the time, Jesse Ventura, who had done some time in acting world and seen how great the Screen Actors Guild Union was, and how helpful that was to people in acting, was going around to wrestlers and saying, hey, do you ever notice that like we die all the time? Like, do you ever notice like we're always hurt and things suck and we actually make like no money? We're getting paid like $1,500 a night or something to go up and put our bodies on the line. Like, we should unionize. And we have an opportunity to do it because Vince McMahon is about to hold this thing called WrestleMania. He has pushed all of his money into this. He has to have the broadcast. It's a live broadcast. It has to go off. And if we that morning tell him we want a union or none of us go on camera, he'll have to give it to us. And the wrestlers are basically down to do this. And Hulk Hogan is like, yeah, brother. Yeah, I like what you're saying. And he then goes over to Vince and is like, hey, Vince, brother, they're trying to do a union on you, man. You better quash that shit. And Vince does. Vince comes out and preempts the union talk and was like, any of you want a union, you go hit the bricks right now. You'll never work in this business again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the rest was all fold because they're not, again, big tough guys. They're carnies and vaudeville types, right? And they're very needy. And so that's like part of Hogan, right? Like he's a little bit of, he's mercenary in that way. He's not trustworthy. He's a snake. But also, it's all coming from a place of neediness and insecurity. And the second thing is Vince McMahon's criminal trial. So Vince McMahon in the 90s went on trial. The feds went after him for, I forget the exact charges, but it was related to steroid distribution, I think. And the idea was Vince was on trial for forcing WWE wrestlers to use steroids. They had also come after Hulk. And Hulk, as being part of this conspiracy, struck a deal with them where he got, I forget exactly the terms of the deal, but I believe he got some form of immunity for this. And in exchange, he was going to testify against Vince. And so the prosecutors put him on the stand and they are like, so, Mr. Balea, Mr. Hogan, Mr. Hulk, sir, tell us about the first time that you saw Vince demand that a wrestler take steroids. And Hulk goes, well, I don't know what you're talking about, brother. I never saw Vince use steroids in my life. Never even heard him say the word. Prosecutors like, what the hell just happened here? And if you go to Netflix and watch the multi-part Mr. McMahon documentary, they had an interview and Hulk is very open about it. He's like, yeah, like me and Vince are the same. We're wrestlers. And there was no way I was ever going to testify against Vince or any of those guys. And I just told I told those lawyers whatever they wanted to hear. I didn't lie to them. I nodded along and I let them believe whatever they wanted to believe that I was going to say. And, but I knew what was up. I knew the score. It's just such a mind. You just see these high-powered government lawyers who thought they were dealing with a normal person, not understanding that they were getting snowed over by a carny. And that's the essence of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. And it is the essence of wrestling, the kind of us against the world. We, nobody else understands what we do. And it's the essence of kayfabe, right? It's the essence of we're doing a thing here. We're doing a thing here, and some people understand it. You got the smart marks out there, but most people are just along for the ride. And Hogan was the master of that. I mean, I remember. I grew up watching Hulk Hogan wrestling in the earliest, late '80s, mid '80s. But the defining moment, in his career in many ways, and certainly for me as a viewer of Hogan, was his big heel turn when he went to the WCW, right?
Third man.
Watching that live, watching the moment where Hulk Hogan, who has again switched sides from the WWE to the WCW, and his longtime home, he's gone. There are these bad guys in the WCW, and they're beating up the heroes. And Hogan comes out there, and everyone's like, he's gonna save the day. And he turns bad, and it was no joke. I don't even know what to describe it as. I don't even know in the real world how you would describe it. The Hitler-Stalin pact. It was wild. It was the wildest thing that had ever happened.
Like watching
to 14-year-old
Superman
me.
sucker punch Batman.
Basically.
Right?
Take his head clean off. I mean, it was a thing. But that again, that is the essence of all this, is that it's all kind of fake. It's all done to create drama. And then once you start transmitting that out of the world of wrestling and into the real world, which is where we exist now, things get weird and bad. That is.
So let me. I wanted us to talk a little bit, and we don't need to belabor this too much, but I do want to talk a little bit about about kayfabe and how that has migrated into the real world. So, if you're one of the 5 people left who doesn't realize that, doesn't understand this, this is a term of art in wrestling which refers to the fake reality. So, the kayfabe is that Jim Duggan, the All-American hero, and the Iron Sheik, who is a tool of the Ayatollah and who hates America, they are mortal enemies and they hate each other, even though the two guys who are those characters are in real life very close friends. And so, like, a great example of this is one of the only times Jim Duggan ever got in real trouble in wrestling was when he and the Iron Sheik were pulled over for travel. Like, they were caught speeding, but they were traveling together from one show to the next. And Vince was furious because if anybody found out the two of them were buddies on doing a road trip together, like, that'll kill our whole angle. So everything in wrestling is guided by the idea of getting over with the audience. And that means that the audience, the marks, you want to get reactions from them. You want to be over with them. And so kayfabe is the way you get over with them. And kayfabe, you can do anything. You could say anything. It doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to be real. It doesn't have to make sense. There can be all sorts of cognitive dissonances with it. Like why is Sergeant Slaughter now Colonel Mustafa? That doesn't make any sense, right? So long as you get over. And that is, I think, one of Trump's great insights. And this is so Trump comes from the world of wrestling. His interactions with Vince McMahon over the years within wrestling, by all accounts, were incredibly formative for him in understanding how to work with the public and in understanding the idea of getting over and the idea of kayfabe. And I just wonder if you guys have thoughts on that. Joe, you look like you got something to say. Yeah.
I mean, swapping out the names, you could have just been talking about the operations of the House Republican Conference for the past 8 years.
Yeah.
And really in the Trump era, we've seen where like the Freedom Caucus were like little rebels. Now they are only rebels for show. They throw these big fits. They carve out this lane as being like the freedom fighters. But at the end of the day, they get on board with the overall goal because it's all an agreed upon goal, which is like gutting Medicaid is the most recent example. Or the deficit. They don't care about that. The goal was everybody getting this thing for Trump. And Trump has really harnessed that since he took over. Before Trump, the Freedom Caucus was like guys who didn't know what they're doing. Now they know what they're doing. They very much get on board with the overall theme, but still present themselves in this different way. Like there's the hardliners and the rebels. There's the leadership. There's the calm moderates, but they all have the same goal. And it's so perfectly represented in politics today. Like, exactly.
So, Sonny, I was going to argue to you that Hulk Hogan is indispensable in bringing this into mainstream American life. But so is Vince McMahon. So Vince McMahon is like the sine qua non. He becomes P.T. Barnum, who makes wrestling this thing which has existed in America for 100 years, but he drags it into the mainstream. But I would argue that he wouldn't have succeeded in that way without Hogan. That Hogan was a singular engine that he was able to ride.
But totally.
What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't think WWE doesn't become what it is without Hulk Hogan reaching that crossover status. It may have still been popular, but like without Hulk Hogan out there revving up the crowds and becoming that kind of poster icon, like that's the thing about Hulk Hogan, is that you had the Hulk Hogan in front of the American flag poster and
with the guitar.
30% of teenage boys' homes in America, and he was, he's in Rocky 3, and he's, whatever. Like there is that. There's absolutely that angle to it. I agree 100%. Like without Hulk Hogan, Vince McMahon doesn't get as big as he is. And without Vince McMahon and the WWF getting as big as they got, the world is certainly a different place. I want to go back to the kayfabe thing for a second, because like set aside the policy debates. Everybody's always a hypocrite and like running a scam on things like reducing the deficit. That's just like that's just, and then you have the smart marks who know that like the deficit's not really going to be reduced. We just say that you see it even in the entertainment side of things, right? With the Epstein files, for months it was, we're going to release the Epstein list. We're going to release the Epstein list. We're going to get the names out there with, they had the friggin' guys on the binders and on the lawn of the White House, and they were waving them around. It was like, Epstein, we got him. We finally got those filthy Dems. And oops, Donald Trump's in the Epstein files. It's not that big a deal. Look over there. Look over there. And this is, I guess maybe my last and main point here. I am curious if they can stretch the kayfabe this far, because this is a thing that a lot of those folks actually seem to care about. And getting the rug pulled out from under them like this might break the illusion in a way that nothing else has, weirdly enough. I'm not 100% sure on that, but anyway, I don't know.
We'll see. My view is that it's all kayfabe all the way down, and that nobody actually cares about anything. That nobody actually cares about anything. It's all, they'll do whatever they talk. They're there because they're the marks. They're the marks, and they're just enjoying the show.
Well, those are the smart marks, yes, but there are like real marks out there who are.
I guess maybe there are a couple. Maybe they're all smart marks now. I don't know. So I guess final thing before we get out of here: Hulk Hogan at the end of the day, heel or face? Sonny?
In life or in wrestling?
I mean, in America.
in reality, I don't know, man.
In America,
he
so as a figure.
He did both. He's the classic comic tragic mask. He was both like the avatar of America, and it's at its most idealistic best to take your vitamins, say your prayers.
I am a real
strong,
American.
Brother.
I mean,
he's the worst. He's the worst. I mean, he like we didn't even really talk about why Gawker was destroyed, and we can do a whole other hour on the ethics of Gawker and Deadspin and that crew. But like, the reason he didn't want that videotape to come out was because he knew he was dropping the N-bomb on it all the time. Like it was like he is a complicated dude, in some ways a very bad dude, also formative for untold numbers of people in terms of how they thought of the country and themselves. Mixed bag, tragic and comic.
Joe, where are you on this?
I'd side more, I guess, with Sonny, but I think that there's the bad far outweighed any kind of like good legacy or like him as an avatar of like great Americanness. I think it was for a certain type of person, and they were wrong.
Well, I'll have to let myself have the last word. I would say he's neither heel nor face. He simply is America. And Hogan is both a product and source of modern America. And whatever problems we have now, we created a guy like him, and those problems emanated from a guy like him. We get the heroes we deserve. We get the cultural icons we deserve. Hulk Hogan, R.I.P. Another childhood wrestler goes away. Very sad in some ways, but in lots of ways. Rest in peace, Hulk Hogan. Sonny, Joe, thanks. Everybody, hit like, hit subscribe, follow the feed. We got more Bulwark stuff coming to you soon.